welcome to The Explainer. So today, we're diving into a story that just completely blurs the line between the mind and the material world. A story about a man whose inner life was so powerful, it could actually make him physically sick.
It's a pretty strange question, isn't it? And I don't mean sick with worry or stress, the way we usually think about it. I mean physically ill from something you only ate in your imagination. Well, this very question is at the heart of the incredible life of a 16th century saint.
All right, so our story kicks off with a man named Raghunātha Dāsa Gosvāmī. He was a devout ascetic back in the 16th century, and he was living a life of almost unimaginable simplicity, totally centered around his spiritual practice.
So, picture this. He's spending his days in deep meditation by the small sacred pond called a Rādhā-Kuṇḍa. But even in this incredibly simple life, he held on to one secret desire. He really wanted to see the holy site expanded. He'd immediately scold himself for this, though, because, a project like that would require a lot of money, and money was something he had completely renounced.
And then, you're not going to believe this, an answer to his unspoken wish arrived in the most extraordinary way. Far away in the Himalayas, a wealthy merchant is on a journey, and he has this powerful dream with a very specific quest. He has to find Raghunātha and offer him all of his wealth for a renovation project.
And this dream? It was crystal clear. The merchant was told to find Raghunātha and give him all the money he needed. The divine message even told him what to say if Raghunātha refused the money. It's like this stranger's quest was a direct pipeline to Raghunātha's most hidden desire.
So the renovation gets started, but the mystical guidance, well, it wasn't over. Just as workers were getting ready to cut down 5 large trees, Raghunātha had a dream. In it, the 5 Pandava brothers, yet from the Mahāprabhu, revealed they were actually living as those very trees and told them not to harm them. And get this, those trees are still standing there today. Incredible.
Okay, so the ponds are restored. You'd think Raghunātha's life would get a bit easier, right? Nope. In fact, it became even more austere, pushing him into constant, direct contact with the raw dangers of the wild.
I mean, this guy owned literally nothing, no shelter. He just slept under a different tree each night in a jungle that was teeming with predators. One day, a fellow saint was just absolutely horrified to see 2 tigers, calmly come to drink water just feet from where Raghunātha was sitting, completely lost in meditation, totally unaware of the danger. Now, this is what's so fascinating, right? You've got this huge gap between what an outsider would see and what was really going on. To any observer, it's just a man surrounded by tigers or baking in the hot sun. But in the spiritual reality of his world, he was being personally watched over and shielded by the divine.
So, what's the key takeaway here? It wasn't fear for his own safety that made him change his ways. Not at all. It was seeing how worried his fellow devotees were and acknowledging these direct acts of divine protection that finally convinced him to accept the shelter of a small hut.
But his devotion wasn't just about, physical toughness. As we're about to see, it was also a matter of this absolute, unwavering spiritual loyalty.
So in his spiritual world, Raghunātha adopted a very specific identity. He saw himself as a servant to the divine feminine figure, Srimati Radharani. This meant he had a fierce allegiance to her and her inner circle, and he would have absolutely nothing to do with her spiritual rival, Chandravali, or anything associated with her.
And his physical needs? They were practically zero. His entire diet consisted of a single small cup of buttermilk each day, just enough to keep his body going while his mind was completely somewhere else. So one day, he's looking at the leaf cup itself, and he notices that the leaves are unusually large and well-formed. He turns to the villager who brought him the buttermilk and just asks this simple, totally innocent question about where they came from. The villager's answer was straightforward. He'd picked them from a tree in a place called Sakistali. But for Raghunātha, this was like a spiritual bombshell. Why? Because that location was the sacred grove of Chandravali, Radharani's rival. The moment he heard the name, Raghunātha flew into what you could call a spiritual rage. He threw the cup to the ground, declaring that a true follower of Radharani would never touch, let alone accept anything from her competitor's turf. His loyalty was so absolute it extended even to inanimate leaves. Okay, and this brings us to the absolute climax of our story. This is the moment where the internal world of his devotion had a direct and, frankly, just unbelievable physical consequence. One day, deep in his meditation, Raghunātha imagined a whole feast. In his mind, he mentally prepared a rich dish of sweet rice,
offered it to the divine couple Radha and Krishna, and then, still just in his mind, he joyfully ate the sacred remnants.
He was so overcome with spiritual ecstasy from this mental offering that he imagined himself eating just a bit more than he normally would. Later that afternoon, when devotees came to see him, they found his door was shut. He called out from inside that he was feeling unwell.
And this is where things get truly wild. The devotees are worried, right? So they send for physicians. After checking his pulse, the doctors confidently announced their diagnosis. His body was feeling heavy and unwell due to indigestion caused by eating too much milk and rice.
Think about that. The diagnosis was medically perfect for the symptoms he had, but it was factually impossible. Everyone was just dumbfounded. How on earth could a man whose only physical food was a little buttermilk get indigestion from a meal he had only consumed in his imagination? You know, Raghunatha's legacy is just this powerful testament to a life lived right on the edge of what we think is possible. While scholars can debate the specifics of his spiritual identity, the sacred artifacts he worshipped are still revered today. And his story, it continues to challenge our fundamental understanding of faith, the mind, and reality itself.
And really, that's the question we want to leave you with today. For someone in such a deep state of spiritual absorption, perhaps that line we all draw between the world of thought and the physical world simply doesn't exist at all.